6:30. And you'll notice who's always late. Always.
Let me ask her.
That's all executive session. City Life Tuesday. That's the good thing about City Life, though. It's an opinion show.
Yep.
The opinion.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it in here. That way, right? There's people in now furious. I see you.
Everybody please rise for the salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
For which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Thank you. Roll call.
Mr. Hoey?
Here.
Mr. Lay?
Here.
Ms. Martin?
Here.
Mr. Nutter?
Here.
Mayor Samaras?
Here.
Mr. Dakota?
Here.
Ms. Doherty? 6 present, 1 absent.
All right, under special order of business, there was a request from the school committee to ask Fire Chief Winwood and Superintendent Richardson to come before the Lowell School Committee. This is the beginning of the school year to talk about protocols regarding safety. Now, there is a Collins report about certain building deficiencies and what have you. That's under the purview of the city manager, and that's not for discussion for tonight, but that's for discussion with the city manager at a point when she's prepared to make a complete report. But this is on school protocol and those issues. So welcome, gentlemen. If you'd like to make an opening statement, Chief Winwood.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for having me tonight. Good evening. So we have a very comprehensive safety program for the schools here in the city. About 5 years ago, Superintendent Durkin formed a committee that consisted of myself, Sergeant Peasley, Superintendent Durkin, many members of the school department, and we kind of revamped the safety procedures for the city. We switched from an old-fashioned lockdown if there's a problem in a school with a violent person to an options-based system where teachers have options now to deal with the situation as they see fit. And I can talk a little bit more about that in detail as we go on. But there's a lot of things that we do in the schools. We visit the schools 4 times a year. We inspect the schools for fire safety code violations. We perform fire drills. We have a big evacuation drill at the high school every year where we work with the school department to evacuate all the kids over to the Sanger Center. We've come up with emergency operations plans for the police department, the fire department, Trinity Ambulance, the Lowell General Hospital, and we've installed all these plans onto iPads that we have in all the fire trucks now. So we do have a very comprehensive safety plan, and I can talk a little bit more about it in detail a little bit later. Thank you.
Thank you. But I think that's the type of information that our parents sometimes would seek. Chief Richardson, welcome.
Thank you.
Your new position.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the invite to come and see the school committee. It kind of saves me a trip. I was planning on tracking all yours down. I know where you are. I know where to find you. But this makes it a little bit easier for me. I'm very honored to have this position, to be superintendent of police. I'm very committed to the safety of the children in the city, whether it's in their homes or in the streets or in the schools. So the school resource program is very important to all of us here at the PD. And obviously, as we know, Sergeant Peasley does a great job along with our SROs over there. And you know, we continue to try to make the schools as safe as we can, and we have training that obviously I can't talk about here in a public forum that we take care of probably every vacation to make sure that our skills are honed. So if we need to go into these schools, God forbid, our officers will be prepared to do the best job they possibly can to protect our children. But I thank you again for the invite. I don't know if there's any particular questions that you
think
need answered.
Officer Peasley should make any statements as far as the resource officers are concerned?
That would be the smart thing to do. I'll have them come up.
I'll do this all on the fly. Sergeant Peasley, I'm the OIC of the School Resource Program. I'd like to thank Chief Richardson for the confidence in keeping me in this position with his promotion to chief. One of the things I think, just to reiterate what the chief said, to show how important this program is to the chief, within, I think, 4 hours of him getting sworn in, we were up in his office and he wanted to know how we did business. And so I think that shows you Chief Richardson's commitment to the program. So one of the things we're committed to is mimicking our community policing philosophy that the police department has had here in Lowell. And if you look at the way we structure our school resource program, it mimics that. We have the same officers assigned to the same schools, just like we would have the same officers assigned to certain neighborhoods. So when the principals have a problem at one of their schools and they pick up the phone and request an SRO, it's always the same SRO for the most part. And so I think the value with that is that the principal and the SRO, they form a nice relationship, and the SRO gets to know the schools intimately for both building relationships and for security measures as well. If there's any specific questions as well, I can answer them.
Any questions at this point? Any concerns?
I just have a comment.
Sure.
I'd just like to welcome both fire chief and the police chief here. I've had a lot of issues with resource officers. It's not about not doing their job. We have 28 schools. That's how many I believe. We might have 27. Don't hold me on the numbers. But we have 9 resource officers that cover 27 schools, or 28 schools. 4 of them are at the high school. That leaves 5 to cover 27 schools. Safety and security is a big issue of mine. It's where I worked in my whole life. and the opening and closing of doors sometimes is very important. I think with the new chief, I hope he understands where I feel like we're short at least. We could use maybe another, 27 resource officers, one in front of every school in Lowell. I know that's impossible. I know what the resource officers are up against. I don't have all the answers. I wish I had the money. So I know money is the issue, and Mayor, security for your schools has to be number one. I think the Lowell Police Department needs a little bit more dough. I don't know how to get it for them. But with that said, I think every principal in the city should understand these are different years, different times. I've done a lot of touring of schools. I've seen people, we did it in prisons. People will put a book in a doorway to keep the back door open so their friends can get in. Little things like that. And it's not the police that need to fix it. I think we need to talk to the children, talk to all the staff, and tell them to secure your schools. The police don't have enough help, and we have to help them. I think it's Dominic, not to lay some work on you, Dominic, but the high school subcommittee, maybe we should have one, maybe have it in the auditorium, and just have an open discussion with all children. If you go out a certain door, make sure you close the door. If you go out to open a door for your friends, make sure you see who's behind them. Kids in high school, they're not babies anymore. They can help secure the place. Last thing I want to say, with 4 resource officers at the high school, I've always been a guy that believes it's always better to have them outside as much as possible. Like 2 on Kirk Street, 1 at the main entrance, and 1 at Lucy Lackham. That's how I felt. I do feel a lot better having a new chief right now, so that's all I'm going to say. Thank you for the time, man. Thank you for letting me speak.
And just for the record, I've talked to Chief Winwood and Superintendent Richardson. I'm looking at bringing a group together too. They have the right ideas of what to do. They know what to do. We have to make sure we fund it. We fund them and do it properly. So I think there'll be more, you'll hear more about that. But it basically addresses some of the issues you just raised. Does anybody want an expansion from the resource officer regarding Mr. Nutter?
No, I'll wait for the fire chief.
Okay. Anything else regarding the resource officers? Thank you. Chief Winwood?
Sure, do you have a question?
I know that your department has worked for the last few years, I believe, in trying to get some grant funding. I just want to know if you could explain some of that and how that is going on a continuing basis.
Sure, we do get a number of grants. We've recently gotten some big grants to buy some new safety equipment for the firefighters. We've gotten some large grants to buy a couple of new trucks. Each year we get a $10,000 grant for our school safe program. And we have a public safety officer, Anthony Lade. He does a great job. He visits all the schools in the city. We also got a grant from the state for a $50,000 safe house. And this is a mini house that's on a trailer. We bring it around to the schools, especially for the younger children. And it's got a living room and a kitchen and a bedroom. And he teaches young people what to do if there's a fire, how to stay low in the smoke. There's smoke detectors in it. We have a fog machine. We can fog up the house, have the kids crawl under the smoke, get out whatever exit is available. It's a very good program. And especially at the end of the school year, we bring the safe house out to various schools and try to teach the children about fire safety.
Mr. Dakota?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question about the high temperatures and high humidity that we've had recently. Do these affect the fire alarms and smoke detectors in the schools?
No, they don't. The smoke detectors and any carbon monoxide detectors would detect smoke. We do have heat detectors in some buildings, and they're usually set at about 100. They go off at 135 degrees, and it hasn't been that hot in the schools. If it is, we can isolate that detector, change it out. Mm-hmm. But generally, no, the heat doesn't have any effect on smoke detectors.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further discussion? Oh, yes, Mr. Hoy.
I just want one more statement I want to make to the chief of police. I think it would be a good thing to let the mayor know if I'm wrong, but I believe we even have a lack of AR-15s. Those are weapons I used to use in the prison system. I used to have a .38 revolver, AR-15, and a shotgun, and that was to work inside a prison. I think right now we send some of our policemen out at nighttime. A few of them might not have an AR-15 on them. And I think the mayor, I know it might sound crazy to everybody, but I think every policeman deserves to have an AR-15 on them, and I don't believe that's the story right now.
But I think that's, in a sense, it's not germane to what we're trying to do
Okay?
tonight. But
I just want the new
No,
chief.
I understand what you're trying to say, but what I would prefer to do, in a sense, in that regard, the police will be meeting on the safety subcommittee on all of those issues, because that's part of what I asked for today. In other words, I want to hear from them as to what do they need to really run a police department, a top shelf. We have a great police department, but what do they need as far as tools are concerned? Are we shortchanging them in any area? So we need that type of discussion. But I think the more discussions we have, the more information we get, the more ideas we'll get. But this is part of the plan, part of the works.
I don't want to say too much, so I just wanted to bring that up because I know a lot of police, and then I don't think we're equipping them right, Mayor, and I want you to go back on the city council side and make sure you look at it. That's all. Thank you.
No, that's the intent. I mean, based on the school committee's request, I mean, the chief both know that what you're looking for is safety of our children in the schools. And what we have to do is make sure that they have the right tools. Like the fire chief, Chief Winwood, talked about, like the gear that they use, the turnout gear. It has to be in good, I mean, you want them meant to be able to fight fires, but you want them to be safe, and especially from the toxins that are there. As far as our police are concerned, we want them to have the best equipment out there because they're out in the street and we need that. But there are other issues that have to be discussed, and the thing is whether I'm looking at new police station, fire station, this is a first-class city. We want to make sure we have first-class equipment and what to do. But I want to thank Chief Winwood, and I want to thank Superintendent Richardson for coming here tonight to make yourself available. And we plan to do this on a pardon? And Sergeant Peasley, I'm sorry, Sergeant, and thank you for coming. Thank you, Mr. Dakota. But the thing is, what we want to do is make sure that if there are issues that you come back maybe every quarter of the year, to discuss any updates that you have in what we're doing in our schools. So, thank you for tonight. Thank you for tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. All right, I need a motion to accept and place on file the minutes of the August 15th and August 23rd meeting of the Lowell School Committee. I need a motion to accept. I got Ms. Martin, seconded by Mr. Dakota. And now we're at permission to enter. Madam Superintendent, do you want to talk about what we have?
Yes, I will. If there are any questions that the committee has relative to the permission to enter, we would certainly respond to those at this time.
Ms. Doherty?
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a quick, not a specific, but overall, it seems like there are a number of grants, or I assume we're using grant funding for professional development of our staff. And I just wanted to ask, do we have somebody on staff that is also tasked with professional development? And like, is this an, overlap of services that we can currently be providing in district, or is it because of the grant money we need to use it this way?
So there are some grants that have very specific grant requirements, and some are very, very specific to early childhood. Others are providing some services, and I think Ms. Desmond can speak to this a bit more about the specifics that are happening from the curriculum standpoint. But we're looking at particular staff, we have our curriculum heads who do provide ongoing training in our schools all of the time. And Ms. Desmond can speak to that if you'd like her to address that with you.
So the curriculum coordinators are K to 12 coordinators, so they provide professional development in specific content areas, K to 12. The kindergarten professional learning is always provided in conjunction with our early childhood department. And I believe in the permission to enter, the two professional consultants are for preschool training, and they are specific to those grants.
Sorry, Mr. Nutter, then Mr. Hoey.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to the superintendent, would you just explain the community teamwork in the Little Sprouts grants? It says to plan, design, and implement a high-quality, full-day, full-year preschool program. Is that something that, we're looking to implement here in the city? And can you just kind of explain, I know I'm kind of confused as to the role of community teamwork in relationship to the school department.
Sure. This is our standing grant. This is the 4th year of the preschool expansion grant that we received. And this is just a reissuing of the 4th year of funds. And this funds our program that is housed in Lowell that services 156 of our students who would not have received pre-K. This is full day, full year pre-K, and it's our 4th year of the grant. So right now the team is planning some extension activities and working with the state to determine feasibility for continuation.
Do we know, I see the grant dollar amount. The state does not require us at this time to provide preschool, correct?
That's correct.
How much of our own general funds, and I understand the importance of early education, but given the fiscal reality that we're facing, how much of our own funding are we putting toward this preschool effort?
So this preschool effort is fully funded through the grant, and with the exception of our early childhood coordinator who provides oversight. So we are the overseer of the grant, but we're kind of the fiscal agents of it. But all of the only 2 additional staff that are funded through the grant are coaches that we work with and train the coaches, and they work with CTI and Little Sprouts in the program. So it is pretty much a self-sustaining grant. Now, that being said, after this year, if there is no additional funding, then we really have to reassess. And that's why the team has been working for the past year and a half now to put together a sustainability plan.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Hoey.
Ms. Durkin, through you, Mayor, Ms. Durkin, if I'm go off the tracks, just stop me, okay? But what I believe about community teamwork, Little Sprouts, and these things we're about to approve here, I believe Gene Franco was the superintendent at the time. I believe the federal government came up with it was $5 million to kind of fix a problem that I think they caused. We all make mistakes. But the Head Start program that I remember, my wife drove a bus for them for 20 years. They had all 4-year-olds. And that program was amazing. They didn't have to speak English. They put them all together. They were ready for school the next year. But because of money again, we had to dilute that program and let other ages in it, 3-year-olds, 2-year-olds. And it almost just turned into a babysitting thing. So I'm not afraid that we're going to run out of money for this, because I think community teamwork, they do some great things, and I think they know that too bad they changed the Head Start originally, because it was one of the best programs I ever seen in my lifetime. So with that said, I just wanted Dominic and people that maybe don't realize where that grant's coming from, so I'm correct on that? Great. So I have no problem with this, and I think community teamwork will go back to the good days, so I'm for it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion regarding permission to enter? All right, I need a motion to approve the permission to enter by Mr. Nutter, second by Mr. Dakota. Thank you. Next, we go to motions. I'm sorry, roll call.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mr. Lay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin? Mr. Nutter?
Yes.
Mayor Samaras?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 absent, approved.
Okay. Now we have our first motion by Ms. Martin requesting that the administration communicate clearly to all schools, site administrators, that building libraries are not to be dismantled or have their collections disrupted during the upcoming school year. In addition, asking the administration to present the plan for how we will maintain the school site libraries during the upcoming school year. I need a motion by Mr. Hoey. Mr. Joe.
I was just seconding it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Really just looking for some information from the administration to let us know how we're going to protect these school libraries. I think we all recognize that as a district, we've invested significant money in outfitting these libraries in terms of the collections, in terms of the, right down to the desks and the bookcases and all the materials that are contained within it. I think we're all disappointed that we find ourselves in this situation, that we're not going to have the library aides in those positions next year. Still holding out hope that maybe hopefully in the future we'll be able to bring those positions back. But at the end of the day, at least for a year, I want to ensure that those libraries stay intact, that they're not kind of pilfered. They're books. We want them getting out, so that's kind of the reason for the second part of the motion, to ensure that they're still being used, but being used effectively, and that we can ensure that they'll still be there as a functioning part of the schools in this upcoming school year and beyond. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay. Next, we have a motion by Mr. Nutter. Request the mayor and our superintendent explain how email messages sent to the school committee Lowell K-12 Mass US are responded by the administration, or does the school committee need to develop a policy to address? I need a second. By Ms. Doherty, thank you. Mr. Nutter?
Thank you. Again, I'm fairly new to this, so if people don't send it directly to me, but send it to all of us, the worst thing that I think we can do is ignore our constituents. We are in a customer service business here in the school department. We service the students and families, and if someone takes the time to send us something, I don't want them to think that no one's responding. So I don't know the protocol, how it's answered, who answers it, so I'm just looking for some guidance.
Yes, Madam Superintendent?
So in preparation for this motion, I did a little bit of research on our end as far as how it's set up. And the current school committee email is just to the school committee. So unless, when the school committee does notify me, and I get those notifications on a regular basis, and I'm not certain if those notices come through this website or if they come through just a personal call from a constituent, but once we get that information, then I would either respond directly to the committee, or I would refer it to a member of the staff who has the expertise in that area to respond, and also ask for a confirmation that the matter has been addressed. So that's how we handle it. I did also look at speaking with my assistant, Ms. Palazzo, relative to an inquiry around the email addresses, because there was some concern about that some committee members had some personal email addresses that they had wanted to have as part of that. These email addresses are our school-specific email addresses, and our team is happy to meet with committee members if they would like and go through kind of how to access that, and if there's something that anyone's having problems with. In addition, we're happy to entertain any other ideas that the committee has relative to this, but at this time, it's very school committee specific.
But I think, to answer your question, Madam Superintendent, if you work with the city manager, on the city council side, all inquiries to the city council are sent out to all the city councilors. And it can be with their name, or it could be anonymous, and we get whatever request is. And each city council makes a decision amongst them, whether they want to address it personally or address it on the floor. So that's something I think we could expand here in the school committee.
Are you suggesting that we add the superintendent or someone she delegates
Yes.
onto that list to handle it?
Yes.
Rather than a school committee? Could I make a motion that we maybe send this question to the school committee policy subcommittee for further discussion and review?
I need a second by Mr. Dakota.
Thank you.
Fine, thank you. All right, next is the motion by...
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Just a quick question. So in regards to these, I've been receiving them on another email account. I have quite honestly made a number of requests to have them sent to a specific, my school committee account, not this school committee account, but an existing school committee account. Is what you're saying that it can only come to this one school department address, or can they?
So at present, that's what we have, is a school department address.
But mine have
and
been coming to another address.
So I'm wondering if someone else, if somewhere along the way, because I asked for the actual addresses. And if you want to call me and confirm what the address is, I'd be happy to tell you what specifically, or meet me at the end of the meeting, because I have it on my,
Sure.
on my email. Okay. So it was sent to me today. In addition, I know that Minerva had reached out to MASC to ask for some advice on this a couple of years back. And it was highly recommended that for the school committee members' own protection, as far as, that if you use your personal email account, then it could be summoned. And so it's it's a public document. So if you use a school committee address, that would behoove you better.
But if we look at the city side, what they're doing, I think it'll address all your issues and get you the information the way you want it. And it'll allow more people to have, be able to look towards the school committee to deal with issues that they're concerned with, okay? All right, the next motion, any further discussion? Okay, next motion is by myself and Mr. Nutter. Request the committee members follow the established policy of setting up visits to school by contacting the principal in advance to set up a time and day, and then notify the superintendent of the planned visit, and request the school committee to expand that policy to include meeting with the department heads, administrators, and all central office personnel. This does not need a second. Mr. Nutter, do you want to speak on it?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's just, I was told this was a policy, and I think it's a good policy. I visited a couple schools last year following that policy, and the principals appreciated it because there were times that, they have a lot of responsibility. They have meetings with, teachers, meetings with parents, meeting with central staff, and the same thing goes, we're asking a lot of our new acting people to do a lot of work, and I just think that it is a common courtesy, whether we like it or we think of ourselves as being people who are kind of intimidating. Most of us don't look at ourselves that way, but we are an elected official, and the position is that when you go into a school, the teachers, the paras, the principals see you in your role as a school committee person. I just think we should follow the policy that's in place, and we should extend that courtesy to all of the central administration, especially now where we have people performing, new roles that, they're gonna need to adjust. Thank you.
And if you don't allow me to speak from the podium, as a former headmaster, before this policy was in place, it did play havoc at times, because just as you stated, when you're trying to do something else, and then all of a sudden, committee members come in and there's an expectation, but it becomes disruptive. And what's important is that the superintendent, what I always tried to do, make sure the superintendent knew that somebody was in my building and their building for certain reasons. But it allows the system to work a lot better, that's all. So all in favor? Yes, Mr. Hoey?
Yeah, I'd just like to make a comment. I've been on 3 school committees, and I never went to a school, didn't tell the superintendent. It's the first thing I do. Madam Superintendent, I want to visit the Butler School. And then I'll call the Butler School, and here I come. I just want to say hi to the teachers. Thank you very much to the cooks and everybody, and get out of their school. I remember doing it once. It's almost like this motion is going to be addressed toward me, because I remember visiting a school on Gorham Street. Let me put it that way. I told the superintendent, I called the principal, everything was good. I went to the school. The principal happened to be off that day. There was a vice principal there. And that young lady, I'll say, principal, got upset over it. That was about a year ago. I think this motion about needs to be fixed, I think we do fine by that. I don't know a school committee person that's going to not give a principal a heads up or tell a superintendent they're visiting a school.
But
So,
I think this is just a reminder to everybody.
yeah, it's a reminder, and I think it's a good
We
motion.
all have the zeal to do what's right, but the question is, sometimes in our zeal, we, present ourselves in the wrong way. So this is just a reminder to everybody. Any other further discussion? Okay. Thank you. Now we have the reports of the superintendent. 8.1 Business Office Budget Update. We have a speaker.
Peter Holtz.
So thank you. I'm Peter Holtz. I'm the principal of the Bartlett Community Partnership School on 1 Lancet Street. And I believe that one of the topics that we're going to be discussing in the budget is a director for alternative school programming, which we don't currently have a director for the program that used to be the COC. And I think that some of the middle school principals, we've talked a little bit about it, and we're always looking to be able to meet the needs of a wide variety of kids. And I think that we're concerned that we're missing that piece right now by not having a director to assist us. So the Bridge program is for our students in 7th and 8th grade that are alternative school, and we sort of have a missing piece in the 5th and 6th grade. And we're always looking to, we're looking at the long road and how do we take care of kids over time. And there are times when we have kids that are going through a difficult time or in a difficult situation. Maybe they've been in trouble with the law such that it's really not appropriate for them to be in school with their peers at that moment. Or there are circumstances where they're not being successful in the full mainstream classroom and they need some additional behavioral supports. We want to do it right. We don't throw kids away. We try to keep them together and hold them together. And I think that it would benefit the district to make sure that we have that piece in place for our 5th and 6th grade students and that it's done well. So we haven't gotten to that point yet, but I did want to advocate for a director position that allows us to make sure that is done properly. Good programming gets good results, and if we don't have the leadership and the supports in place, then I think that we miss an opportunity. A lot of a lot of our students at the Bartlett that have gone away to the alternative schools have come back, and that's one of the things that we're always looking to do is create the conditions for a student to grow and be more successful. Sometimes in an alternative setting, and sometimes those kids come back and they finish where they started. And I feel like the Bridge is a phenomenal program, and I feel like we need to make sure that we don't. That we don't have a missing piece between, the upper elementary and then into the Bridge program. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you. Madam Superintendent, any report?
Thank you. I'd like to ask Assistant Superintendent for Finance, Billy Joe Turner, to share with you a finance update / budget update, because there are more things that she has had to do during the course of the past week and a half that I think is important for you to learn about.
Good evening. As the superintendent stated, we have focused on budget review, back to school issues, and unanticipated obstacles. The first unanticipated obstacle is we're supposed to update the salaries, the step increases, and degree advancement with City Hall. We attempted to do that just by doing step increases. However, Munis doesn't have a way of identifying people that are on step 8. You're on step 8 for 5 years, so it doesn't have a date listed. There was another data source that was maintained by the previous assistant business manager who is no longer with us. Since he left, the data source was not maintained. So we've been trying to get all of the salary updates without causing double increases and other errors like that. So we did manage to do all the bargaining units except for the teachers. We did speak with the UTL, and we sent out an email to the teachers letting them know that their step increases would be 1 week delayed with retro. So that's the first obstacle.
Any questions? Ms. Doherty?
How many people are we talking about that you've had to go through? And
The entire school committee staff, do you mean how many people are delayed or how many people did we go through?
how many people did you have to go through to see if they were due for a step increase or not?
All of them, and teachers are the most difficult because I could sit there and just take a basic spreadsheet and increase 1s to 2s and 2s to 3s, but there are there's contract language that complicates it. You cannot move from a 0 to a 1 unless you worked 90 days in the previous year. Well, the start date is not available to me in an accounting system. So it's something that would be maintained in X2. And again, if you reach step 8, you stay on step 8 for 5 years. Well, there's not a date. So when I'm looking at all of the step 8s, I don't know if it's year 1, year 2, year 3. Now, the good news is that this problem happened. We're going through it. We worked with City Hall. They're working hand in hand with us, giving us this time to do it right. We're identifying all of the areas where someone was given 2 step increases. We're identifying it before we implemented their salary. And going forward, I'll maintain that spreadsheet the way the previous assistant business manager did, and that way we have accurate step increase data.
Mr. Nutter?
A couple things. One, it's great that you've identified this and you're going through this. Will you be able to store that information where many people can, get to it in the event that you, other than yourself, so that if you weren't here for one reason or another, the next person could get easy access to that?
Right, and that's exactly why instead of just doing a spreadsheet that I normally would work with, X2 is available to all, and there are different tabs. And I do believe in cross-training, so once I work with staff to figure out how to do the updates, I'm going to make sure there are other people in my office that know how, not necessarily have access, but know how.
And, all of us here on the school committee, I'm sure, thank the UTL for their cooperations and patience while we go through this. No one likes their paycheck messed with, and I appreciate the fact that the UTL was willing to allow us to go through this, and it's a lot easier. I know in the past, I've seen stories where we've had to go have teachers refund money, or, we've overpaid. Better safe than sorry. So thank you to the UTL for agreeing to this.
Okay, so the next obstacle that we face currently, still, transportation. NRT, the contract language reads that they have to be notified by March in order to add vehicles. They did attempt, they were notified over the summer instead, and they have attempted to add the 4 additional buses needed at the Rogers. They're having a difficult time with both drivers and vehicles. This past week, the first week of school, it wasn't so much of an issue because the other districts start later than us. This week, we have this issue again. Today, we had no problems, but the problem is that if anyone calls in sick, they're short a bus. So we just wanted to give you a heads up because these are going to be problems that we may face.
Just to add to that, I did meet with the director, the president of NRT, and also Mr. Dakota last week. And I wanted to know best case scenario, worst case scenario. And I do want to commend them. They really pulled together and they said, this is going to be okay if we don't have anyone calling sick. And so John Dakota was alerting me first thing this morning saying we had everyone on time. But I want the committee to be aware that what they're doing right now is they're training some additional staff. They do have to wait for some state certifications to come through. They have 5 people in the queue at this time to support us. However, that's going to take some time. So it's important for all of you and for families to be aware that if we do have anyone calling in sick, they've actually pulled their own people from offices in to support right now. If we do have anyone calling in sick, we may have some delays, but we're prepared to address that.
Any other questions? Ms. Doherty?
So just to be clear, we're short 4 buses and 4 drivers, and because we didn't provide the proper notification. So they're gearing up to get those people in, there's just a delay.
So they brought in, last week, they brought in drivers from other districts that, because the school hadn't started there. And they've also brought in some drivers from out of town to support. And this week, they've juggled things around enough that they've been able to get the drivers in place using their own staff. But that's if everybody stays well, so.
Sorry, just a follow-up, but wouldn't that also mean that the cost has gone up for 4 additional buses?
That's the next piece of it,
Oh.
which Ms. Turner can share with you.
So transportation, another issue that we face is the day school, the relocating of the day school. We no longer we're not going to be able to cost share. In past years, our district could work with other districts to share buses and share the cost. We're no longer able to do that, and so we're going to have to fully fund the transportation of these students. So with that said, we anticipate possible increases to transportation. We are exploring options with NRT to make sure we emphasize that we don't have money, and we're trying to identify all alternative options.
And we're also working with John Dakota to look at times and start times. If we have to change that, we may have to consider that mid-year to make some corrections on that.
Mr. Nutter?
Again, I just want to, we asked during the budget if they were going to separate the beginning times for the Rogers School, because 5th and 6th graders were going the same time as elementary students. So when they expanded to the 7th, we were told, yes, that this was being done. However, we're now finding out that although that was done, they never added the 4 buses. They never notified NRT. We have now the issue with, we were told we were going to get all this great savings from the day school. and they never figured out the transportation for that. I mean, it's, you know, we approved a budget, and now we're finding out that we didn't have half the information that we were needed. And it's just very, very frustrating. And, you know, later on, the frustration grows with the custodial issue in the day school.
Any other further discussion?
Okay.
Ms. Turner?
Okay, and well, now I have some good news. The Special Ed 240 grant was able to fund 4 paraprofessional positions, and so we have added a nurse para for Bartlett School, a 101 para at the Butler, a CSA para at the Robinson, and 1 additional to be determined. These FTEs will need to be voted into the budget eventually. To help with the immediate need for staff, we reduced the amount of professional development to fund these positions. Any questions?
Ms. Martin?
Thank you very much. So just, you know, as a note as we move forward, if we could see these changes sooner rather than later reflected in the budget updates, rather than waiting, you know, for too long. I think where we know that this is a shift, that we're going to be eliminating those professional development funds, reallocating them to this purpose. I'd much rather see that happen at our next, you know, in time for our next meeting if possible.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
The next item is the corrective action plan. The corrective action plan for the Food Service Administrator review, it was filed with the Department of Ed on Friday. We now have to wait for their review and approval. And next, we have met with the special ed director to discuss the circuit breaker budget. I'm happy to say that if we look at all the data, 75% of the above foundation cost would justify the $4 million in revenue for circuit breaker. However, the method for coming up with the expense portion of the circuit breaker is, we're a little concerned with that. They took the existing special ed tuition and they reduced it by 14 assumed students that would be brought in district to the day school. Well, at this time, there's only 7 or 8. And it did not take into consideration the 5% of increase to tuition cost each year, and it did not take into consideration students that often come in after the fact. For instance, we have 5 that have been added to the list since the budget was approved. So at this time, we're working with the special ed director to identify all known possible costs so we can track this and keep you updated.
Another?
I remember at the budget hearing, the superintendent, when he was pitching moving this school, had told us that there were 14 families, sorry about that there were 14 families who had committed to come here. And I believe even Ms. McChrystal came up with the same amount. So, I mean, we were told we had these, this was part of the selling point. We had these 14 families. We were going to save this amount of money. What happened? How did we go from 14 to 8 after being told that we had these 14? Because we all know that's a huge hit right there.
Madam Superintendent?
So I can have Ms. McChrystal speak to you. She's not here this evening, but I do know there were some conversations that were had between Ms. McChrystal and Mr. Frisch relative to how many students could be brought back. And we have to keep in mind, really, it's very, very important to keep in mind that bringing a child back from out of district is IEP driven. So it is a team's decision, and it's not something that we can select, 14 children to you come back. So it's important to understand that piece of it. We do know that we have 7 children that are coming back to the district at this point, and so So there are others that are having meetings, but I can't really speak to those without disclosing, students' private information at this time.
Ms. Martin?
Thank you very much. I think what of particular concern for me, and it certainly, I think, piggybacks on what my colleague has just mentioned, these 14 students were in a program. They were at the day school program, simply at a different location. My understanding when we agreed to this was that that entire program was being picked up and moved to this new location, so that there shouldn't be any IEP changes or concerns unless they've actually, the children's needs have actually changed in the period from end of June to beginning of September. I mean, the whole purpose of this was to basically just take this entire school and bring it, if not necessarily into Lowell, which was certainly what we all wanted, but, we compromised and went with a closer to home. So I don't understand what the change would be in terms of IEPs.
So I can clarify. We're talking two different things. So yes, the children that were at the day school, Crest, are currently at our new day school in Chelmsford. So these are the projection to have 14 additional students be brought back in to the district. 7 of those were confirmed by Ms. McChrystal, and so what our assistant superintendent is trying to say is that if we had 14 students, the $4 million estimation, it would be accurate, but at this time we have 7.
So we had, how many students were in the existing program last year? 7?
No, there were more than that. I don't want to give you an exact number, but maybe Ms. Desmond can look that up for us.
Okay. Because, so a certain number of those students moved from the other site to the new day school.
No, all of our students at the day school, unless they were moving up or moving out, they moved to our day school. So the students that were at Crest last year moved to our day school.
I'm sorry, that's what okay.
In addition, there was projected in the budget, reflective in the budget, it said that there were going to be a projection of 14 students
additional
returning from out-of-district placements. Right, not Crest, not our day school.
So we should have 14 students currently at the day school at a baseline.
More than that.
I'm just
more
going to
than
finish
that.
my sentence.
No, more than that.
Let me finish my sentence,
Sure.
and then you can tell me. So 14 students coming from the previous school have moved into the day school. And we are anticipating an additional 14 new students that would be bringing back from other placements that would be going into the day school. Currently, we've accomplished this with 7. So we have the over-under is that we have 7 empty slots at the day school. Am I, okay. Sorry.
That's okay. It is confusing. Do you want to elaborate?
Yes, just so I can clarify, there are 2 factors here. The revenue side, which at this time, based upon the formula, the $4 million, that was an increase. The budget showed a high increase to revenue, and when we first met with the city, they were concerned about that, thinking, how do you justify that? But based on the formula and the data, that seems legitimate. The concern is that if you look at the budget, last year there was $12 million in circuit breaker expenses, and it went down to $11 million. And there's no way to justify, well, let me put it like this. The only reduction to expenses that is listed is 14 students that were out of district that are now being moved in district. When I wanted to justify and rebuild the budget to make sure that we have adequate funding, that's when I identified that we didn't build in the 5%. We did not build in the cushion that for the students that were being considered at that time and additional students that could come in after the fact. What I also then learned was that there were 14 students as a projected number of students that we will bring back in-house. When I said, well, show me that. Show me that, because if you estimate 14 students at an average of 75 and they end up being $150,000 placements, or no, rather, if you estimate 75,000 and they end up being $50,000, did we really reduce the expected expenses too much? So when I asked for the data, at this time there were only 7 or 8 students. Now, in fairness, I am working with the special ed director so that we could identify this and work together. She's not available at this time, so we were not able to complete it. She might have some, more information, but her staff said at this time only 7 or 8 were able to be brought back in-house. Does that make sense, how it's 2 different parts? Okay.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Okay.
Ms. Doherty?
Thank you. So I guess from my perspective, I'm trying to look at the positive on this. We do have those slots. I mean, that was part of the attraction, not only taking the program in Methuen and moving it closer to Lowell and, keeping that program, but adding to it, being able to expand. So the problem is we built the budget on revenue that we don't have because only 7 of the projected came in. Right? And then it seems like there are also other costs that we weren't privy to or we didn't discuss, such as the transportation issue, which you already mentioned. I was not aware that we had to provide custodial services, which now I see in your report. That's another piece of it. Not only did we be overly optimistic about the revenue we were going to get, we ignored some of the costs that were involved. But we're not done yet because we still could find those students, and there is also the option of taking students from other districts who might choose to come to our program, right? So.
Okay. Okay, so the next concern is that we did a project based upon one of the motions requested to identify the top 10 facility concerns at each school. So each of the schools submitted their top 10. We summarized that and gave it to you in the packet, which is more of a narrative form. Our next steps with that is we're going to do a category by each of those so that we can then sort and see where our main concerns are as a district. And as suggested, we could then, pursue repairs based upon the most needed functions. And if you wanted to, we do have Ricky Underwood here, so if you wanted to hear more about this.
The report does come later in the agenda, but if you...
Might want to take it out of order, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Good evening, everybody. So we met with Jim Donison and Jim Green this morning and went over this list. This is by no means a reflection on our work order system. These are just a reflection of the biggest concerns of the principals in each school, as you know. So we came up with a couple of different ideas of how we could approach this. We thought of possibly just going in and starting in an alphabetical order and just go from each school. Some of these things on this list will be addressed by the school department. Most of them will be addressed by DPW. But it's our thought, like I said, we'll either address it, like Superintendent Turner said, by importance, or we will go by alphabetical order and just go school to school. A lot of these things are easily fixed, some a little more difficult. The roof repairs, as you know, are in the 5-year capital plan, many of them, so those will take a little bit longer. And as you can see by some of the lists, some of them are very easily fixed. Some are already fixed at this point in the time that the list has come available to everybody. And that's our plan. Any questions, I'd be happy to try to shine some light on it.
Mr. Dakota, then Mr. Hoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is there a plan for the City Council Facilities Committee and ours to get together to discuss this further? I thought that was something that we wanted to do.
It's in the plans, yes.
We just don't have it.
We'll get that information. As we needed more information, so we'll get that together. Yes, Mr. Hoy, next.
Just something quick way. We have Mr. Underwood here. Yesterday I was at the poll at the Riley School, and I have only seen like 3 schools so far. The Shaughnessy looks pretty good. I'm just wondering how you did with the landscaping. Are you all up to snuff there?
I think we did a pretty good job this year. We had a very short season. I hope some of you were able to go and visit some of the schools. I personally thought they looked fantastic. We did get a little bit late start on some of the grass. Being such a short year, we were really focused on getting the building done. Did it look like a golf course? Probably not to every school, but I think they did a very good job, and I'm actually pretty proud of all the work the guys did this year. You gotta remember, we were in a very, very hot season. Many of our schools don't have air conditioners. We worked through it, and again, I think we did a fantastic job.
Yep, and one more thing, Rick. I thought the Shaughnessy looked real good, and I just drove by it really fast, but at the back of the Butler, there happened to be a big dumpster, and I don't believe it's our fault. I think it's a recycling dumpster.
There's actually two back there. There's one's recycling and
One's for clothing?
Yeah.
Well, I know one of our elected state...
Oh, I'm sorry, you're talking about the Riley?
Riley.
I'm sorry, yes, I did see that. That's not a city or school department dumpster. That's strictly recycling of an outside vendor. But it was a mess, I agree.
No, but do they come on their own, or do we have...
They come in their own, but that's used by the community also, and it fills up quite fast. One of the problems with that dumpster, and all of them, is they have a side window on the side of the dumpster for easy loading. But unlike our dumpsters that we get from Waste Management, they do not have a sliding door on it. So once it gets to that level of that window, any wind, any breeze, or any blows those papers out around the parking lots and whatnot. So we try to address it the best we can, but it's an ongoing.
I just want to end with this. Don't look at me. It was Dave Nagel that told me to jump on you over that.
I
That's
actually
all.
seen Dave at the polling center. We did talk about it. So I was happy to let him know that that was not the school department.
That was
dumpster
too
or the
much
city.
information.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem.
Mr. Hardy.
Thank you, Your Honor. So I originally made this motion February 14th, 7 months ago, and my intention was to try to give us some focus, because if we look at the pile of work orders, right, it's a ridiculous document of outstanding work orders. So my thinking is, I definitely want to try to do that meeting with the council, but maybe we need to have an internal meeting first, which was part of the motion. When you feel like you have a handle on some ways you want to proceed, to meet with the school committee facility subcommittee, so we can identify, okay, these are the things we want to talk to the city council about, that, if we have horrendous bathrooms, or bathrooms that aren't working in schools, or whatever what we determine are the priority issues from this list, then we meet with the city council. But I don't even remember when I had a motion like 2 years ago to try to meet with the city council facility subcommittee. It's not happening. So we need to start here with our facility subcommittee, narrow it down. What can we do? What can our people do? What are the low-hanging fruit stuff that's not a huge amount of money or a huge amount of time that could really make a difference for these schools? I know there was a thing, a handicap ramp at one of the schools, it might have been the Robinson, that was not up to code. To just get that, we were able to get that fixed when Ed Kennedy was mayor. That was just one thing that came to my mind. So I would like to stay on top of these lists and not let another 7 months go by. Have a subcommittee meeting with the facility subcommittee of the school committee, and then go before the city council.
I agree with you. I think it'd be to our advantage to put our own house in order before we meet with the city council. So I would subscribe that's a good direction to go in at this point. Madam Superintendent?
Thank you. I just wanted to reiterate what Assistant Superintendent Turner mentioned, that this was just the first step. So we wanted to make sure that we were responsive to your motion and get some information out to you. The next step is to actually categorize, so that we can see that in the interim, I know that, and I'm grateful that the city and Ricky sat down today and started to strategize some plans. But in addition to actually starting to tackle them one at a time, I think it would be really beneficial for us to look at them as a group. So if air conditioning is a unit in 10 of our schools or 12 of our schools, that if we could tackle those, if we can get someone in to support that. And that's a conversation that we do have to have with the city around that. So that'll be the next stage that Billy Joe and her team would be doing, and maybe at that point, it would be beneficial to have the committee meet.
That sounds good.
Mr. Hoy.
I just want to thank my colleague for staying on top of the issue for the past few years. And I was part of the facility subcommittee with Gendron and Gignac and myself, and I believe you were on the other side. I know Miss Doherty was there because we had some of the biggest motions about facilities in a long time. I think the city manager has got us in a good direction right now as far as maintenance goes. I have no sweat with Mr. Underwood. I think, again, I'll say it tonight, we got him as a bargain. I don't know how long we can keep him.
I agree.
Okay, but I do believe we, all of us on the school committee and the mayor here, and the city manager, I think we're all set in this. She just has to find the money to get it done. In her report on maintenance.
It's a good point, though.
Oh, it's a
Make sure
great
our
point.
own house is
But I
in
just don't want to go away from what I seen this city manager already come up with.
Absolutely.
Her plan to me was one of the best presentations I've ever seen, so thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Chakotto.
Just quickly, Rick, did you say that you basically identified what the school department could be doing on that list as opposed to the DPW? Are all of those items been designated to?
We did. We went through the list one by one, school by school this morning. We met for almost 2 hours this afternoon.
Okay, great. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All set? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Mr.
the next item was an update on the audio visual department. To clarify, 2 positions were eliminated and 2 positions are still in the city budget for $108,000, whereas the cost of the 2 positions is $133,000. So this is we have a shortage of $25,000 that we're tracking. As far as the expense side, it was fully funded by an offset using PEG funds, but the city explained that that was not approved. There are funds for a van, to outfit a van, but we're working with the city on options with that, because we would have to bring that in front of the city council to re-vote it. Once June 30th passed, the funds flow into free cash, and we would have to get another vote to have access to those funds.
Ms. Martin.
What is the amount that we'd be looking at in terms of the van?
I believe it's $150,000.
Plus.
So would we have the opportunity to reallocate those funds and use them instead for staffing?
So I reached out, yes, we did.
Okay.
So we reached out to the CFO today, the city CFO, and he said that we would have to bring that in front of the city council as well. So they could vote yes if we found it more reasonable to bring staff back instead of opening a van, but we have to get their approval.
Okay, so as we move forward, then you'd be providing us with a recommendation from the administration about where we'd want to kind of invest those funds. I mean, I would say for myself, I do think that I would much rather see that invested in staff at this point. I don't think this money didn't come to us as a one-time only kind of thing, so that it is something that we should be able to anticipate for budgets moving forward. Normally, when we make those kind of capital investments, it is because we get kind of one-time only funds and we don't want to, build a deficit into our ongoing budgets. That's not the case with this, hopefully. But I think, certainly the amount of money we've already invested in our studio and in all the other technology that drive this activity is going to go to waste if we don't have appropriate staffing to take advantage of it and to allow our students to have access to it. So I guess just an opinion, but as you are considering this, I do think that an investment in bringing back that staff would be certainly my preference as we move forward.
Mr. Nutter, then Mr. Doherty, then Mr. Chakotto.
I just want to try to, and I hate to be throwing a wet blanket here, but under the Mass Municipal Modernization Act, the school departments lost what used to be automatic funding from the PEG account. Now it falls under the city council. That's why last year the city council voted $108,000, which was the manager's recommendation. It used to be, the way it was set up, is the city, by their cable contract, gets approximately 5% of all of the boxes that are sold. Now, as more and more people unplug from cable, that revenue has gone down. The Mass Modernization Act took away the money automatically going to the schools. The Cregan family did a lot of fundraising or other activities to help redo the studio. They were promised, along with that the van, which my understanding, and this is all before my time, so I'm going on anecdotal history and conversations I've had. The van was bought at a huge discount with the assist of the Cregan family, with the promise that it was going to be outfitted. The city council voted for that $150,000 to equip that van. The purchase order, because of the timing, was never cut, so that the city did not lose that money to free cash. The city council voted to put that money back into the PEG account, with the understanding to the city councilors who had sponsored that motion that the city manager's office would bring that motion back to equip that van. So my understanding is there are several councilors and the Cregan family who have been promised that that van is going to be equipped. So I unfortunately, would not count on that $150,000 unless the manager can convince the counselors that it's better to give that to us, which, listen, I'd be happy to take it. We need the program, and it's nice to have a van, but if we don't have staff. The other question I have to you, Mr. Mayor, and I heard Jim Peters the other day mention something about LTC stepping up to help, willing to see what they could do to assist us in that, in the television production program. I don't know if you've heard anything about that, if can we reach out to LTC and see if there's any possibilities?
We could have her here.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's the best. Okay, we'll set that up, okay?
Thank you.
All right. Is Mr. Dakota, no, Ms. Doherty for us. You had? That's it. No, Mr. Dakota?
Okay.
You're all set, Mr. Hoey?
After listening to my colleague, Mr. Nutter, wasn't it that we used to get, Ms. Turner, maybe you know, I think we used to get last year, $250,000 off Comcast.
It was, if I may, it was probably 3 years ago that, starting last year, the manager cut that to 108. And that was never quite explained to the school committee, but that happened last year.
Right, but I thought the year before.
The year before, it was about 250,000, right?
Okay, thank you.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. Was there anybody else? Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Turner, go ahead.
The next item is the Lowell High School clubs. We are establishing a task force to review the stipends. There were clubs added December of 2017, and there was a question brought forward to see if the funding was there. The budget does not show an increase in munis. It looks flat. However, there were clubs last year that were inactive. So at this time, we're going to create a task force with Lowell High and review this in more detail.
Mr. Dakota?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to be part of that task force. I had a motion dealing with the clubs and so forth at the high school, so I would like to very much be part of that.
Okay.
Thank you.
And the next item is the unbudgeted part-time custodian at the day school. And at this time, we're gathering information on options. One of the options that we have is to hire a part-time custodian. The other is to revisit the administrative building contract to include custodian services, which would free up the current custodian for coverage at the Rogers and Day School combined, a shared position. And the third option is to work with the owner of the day school to include such services. We did just get quotes on the way over here, and they were quite expensive, so we want to follow up with the options with the administrative building. The lowest option for the day school provided custodian would be $35,000, and $39,000 was the high end of that. And that was only for 17,000 square feet. When we looked at the central office, that is approximately 40,000 square feet, and it was only $600 more. So we want to explore the option more and see before we bring it to you.
Madam Superintendent?
It's just important to note that in that interim time, we are having to pay overtime so that we have the school clean. It's a beautiful renovated facility that needs to be maintained. But we will have that to you as soon as possible. We were hoping to have it all figured out tonight, but the quotes were coming in as we were arriving here.
Okay. So the next item is that we're researching the feasibility of contracting with another community to provide education for one of their students. We also would have to establish a non-resident tuition fund, but it may not be necessary because previous administrators created, such a fund. We're looking into this with the Department of Ed to see how we should handle all of this. The next item is we have referrals for the McHugh alternative program at the Sullivan. The funding for the administrator was placed in the suspense account. We're requesting a vote to release these funds for this position.
Mr. Nutter?
Through you to the superintendent, roughly how many students are we looking at right now?
So we met with the leaders last week, and right now there are 4 students that are still determined that they could benefit from a smaller setting. We do have the 2 teachers on staff and ready to go. Right now we have them, reaching out to the Bridge program and to our other therapeutic settings to get a good indicator of programming and what things should look like for students. But we really feel that it's important to have that. The budget listed it as an assistant, but we're recommending a coordinator, very similar salaries. The reason for that is it would be a standalone program that would be able to support the students. The coordinator could work directly with the staff in the schools and to make sure that transition planning happens for students to come back, because that's the goal for our students.
Ms. Doherty?
So given all the unknowns that we still face with the budget, do you feel confident that we can move forward and add this position now?
We know that there will be some monies that are coming in through the revolving accounts, and we're seeing that come through. In addressing the situation, we feel that we do have that money set aside in the suspense account specifically for that purpose. So we are, and speaking with our leaders, we really looked at a number of different options last week and tried to ascertain if there was another setting, if there was something else we could do. If we don't come up with this type of solution, then there may be some out of district placements, some other things that we need to think about for students. We don't want to go back to just, there are some students that are put out on long-term suspensions, but that's not the best situation for a child that needs some additional support. What our goal is, and I think Principal Holtz said it much more eloquently than me, is to help the students get the supports that they need so that they can return to their school with the skills to be successful.
Ms. Martin?
Thank you very much. I think we all ultimately are in favor, and we want to maintain these alternative options for our students, recognizing that they really are in many cases, they're the thing that will finally work for a student and help them turn things around and get back into a traditional academic environment. I do think it's challenging when we're talking about 4 students, 2 teachers, and now adding an administrator. That ratio is pretty dramatic. Is there any way that we could perhaps, if we have openings, if there's an aspect at the day school, at the bridge, where we could perhaps fold in some of these activities so that you could have an existing administrator be able to support the program of these 2 teachers over the course of time? Is that a way that we could make this happen in a way that could be a little more cost effective?
So again, we have really gone through a number of different scenarios on this. The day school would not be an option because the day school is a therapeutic setting for our students who have very specific needs, and that wouldn't be fitting. As far as the bridge goes, one of the real challenges is when you have a 5th grader and an 8th grader, there's a very different age there. And so when you look at a tiny little one who's coming in, to place a child, that is not the best situation. This is some of the challenges we did have with the Cardinal. The way it was set up was that it was a 5 to 8, and that some of our students who would have benefited from a setting, an alternative setting, principals said, we really need to think differently because it was challenging for our youngest ones. So we have looked at that. We've looked at, and again, you know that our space is really challenging. And in our middle schools, we did have principals say, a year out, we could potentially look at some other options, and we figured we would plan for that. But for this year, it is something that the principals feel that they really need to support students. And again, these are typically, we have students who, it's a rolling enrollment, right? So the referrals come in, and we specifically asked principals to hold their referrals because of the transition that took place. So right now there are 4 waiting, and there are some others that principals are doing due diligence and trying to work with the children and their teams to come up with some other alternatives to help them be successful in the regular school. But for right now, there are 4.
Doherty.
Thank you. I just want to add to that. I think that it is, September 5th. So we have 4 today, and there probably are going to be more. And the idea of having a program, we moved, I believe, 150 students out of the Sullivan School, right? That number sticks in my head, to make room for this program. But it is a program for 5th and 6th graders where you also have 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. So I'm not sure how that plan ever really is going to succeed. I had my concerns about it during the budget program process anyway, but this is where we are now. So we've already moved those students out to the Riley. We've made the room. We need to have the professional staff in place to make sure not only that the 4 students that we have this week moving, but if there are other students going over there, they have the supports they need, and that the school, the Sullivan School, is able to make progress and continue to teach the students that they have there as well. So, I asked you the question about the funding because we know there's so many moving parts, but for me, this is a priority role, just like the paraprofessionals are priority roles. It seems like we've kind of dodged a bullet with that one, and that you've been able to, for right now, but you know, I think that these are positions that we really need. There may be other positions that perhaps are not as important or critical that we might have to look at as more information comes to light, but I would be in support of following through with this plan that we set up. We disrupted a whole lot of people to do it.
Mr. Nutter?
My concern, it goes along the same line as Ms. Martin. You know, for student, why, is it for the discipline? Is it for, I mean, there's a principal at the Sullivan. Is it just a case of not having, you need a principal there for 4 students?
So I can share what was shared with the staff of the Sullivan and the families of the Sullivan School when this proposal was brought forward. And the principal of the Sullivan is here and probably can articulate it best because I was hearing it from him. But would it be okay to?
Hi, Ed Foster, principal of the Sullivan. What was shared with the parents, school council, and the PTO was that it would be, we'd have it at the Sullivan, but there'd be supports, the teachers and the director. It was actually an AP was a part of it, but I think right now we're just talking about a coordinator of it.
I mean, I appreciate what you were told. Unfortunately, we were told a lot of things that we've found out is just, you know, not fiscally feasible. And I hate to, you know, keep adding on, but again, I'm just looking at it from, you know, 4 students, 2 teachers, and a coordinator on top of that just seems to me, at the salary, very hard to justify when we have so many other issues.
Madam Superintendent, do you have a comment? Okay, Mr. Hoey?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just going to shoot out a few things that are on my mind about these schools. 20 years ago when I was on a school committee, maybe 22 years ago, I voted against alternative schools. I think I was the one person that voted against them. I think it was building prisons for children. But after sitting here again for a couple of years, I looked at the Bridge program, which is for a whole different breed of child. I mean, it's amazing, that school. They have dogs in there for the kids, and they know how to boot them in the rear end and hug them at the same time. The school was amazing. But I have to agree with Ms. Doherty. I think the moves that we're making right now, I think when I look at the Sullivan School and I look at the Robinson School, which are very important. Both of those schools have been important to this whole school committee. They need help. There's no doubt in my mind they need help. I think the Robinson School, they need a dean of discipline. I think the Sullivan School needs the same thing. So I think this person that they're recommending that moves over there should be acting like that, because these vice principals, I've been talking to some of them, and a lot of people think we should get rid of vice principals. You want to have some problems, do that. Bus problems, just in the morning, some of these vice principals have to deal with 10 or 15 problems just that happened on buses. And it's true. I believe we have to find money for the Sullivan, and we have to find money for the Robinson. I'd like to say the same thing to the principal at the Daily, but he doesn't seem to have those problems. I don't know why. I think we should have him at the mic a little bit more. Maybe he can give us some great advice. So thank you very much.
Mr. Chikotto?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just an idea. I mean, I do support following through with that and getting the coordinator, but is there a possibility of, and was this discussed, a possibility with those 2 teachers to offer them a stipend to do this extra work?
That wasn't one of the discussions that we had. I do know that having at one point had oversight of the alternative programs in the district, that one child who is experiencing some difficulty could take up. And they deserve someone's attention. They deserve someone to provide them the supports that they need, but they could take up one administrator, sometimes two administrators' time for a full day. We want our principals to be instructional leaders. We want them to be in classrooms, really supporting our teachers about best practices, and we need to be able to provide, if we're going to have this program, we need to be able to provide the administrative support to make it happen.
If I could, I would agree with Superintendent Durkin that we have had other programs at the school. We've had a challenging time this past year maintaining them. We're making some strides, but I think adding an additional program would be very difficult to maintain with the administrative support that we have now.
Excuse me, do you see yourself as a principal recommending other students for this program? In other words, you see 4 as being doable at this point, or are we talking down the road if the program was available, maybe 15 to 20, when you think of all the middle schools?
Well, 4, I think, with the proper support, we could, and even more than 4. I don't know, 15, 20. I'm still new to this program myself, but we can maintain it. We do have the staff. As long as we have the administrative support for it, I think we can maintain it.
I'll say 15, 7, maximum 7 each for teachers and director. Okay, thank you. Ms. Doherty?
Thank you. Thank you for letting me speak in. I just want to make one more point that occurred to me. We think about it as number 4, there's not that many, and maybe it will be twice that. I mean, we're still in the first week of September. But one child struggling in a school, let's say one of our large middle schools like the Daly or the Robinson, can cause huge disruption for many, many students around them. And without the supports to help turn that child around, you're really impacting so much more than just that one child. And that's why an investment in alternative education is an investment not only in just that one child, but the whole school system. And as I said before, and then I really will drop it, but we've already committed to this path. We moved 150 students out of the Sullivan School. We disrupted the whole 5th grade teaching teams at the Sullivan to create a program. We need to have the supports to give that program an opportunity to succeed and to give the Sullivan the supports they need to do their work. And so I think we have to move forward on this role.
Ms. Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I certainly agree that having this program at the Sullivan does present with challenges, and we need to take responsibility for that as a committee, as a district, to ensure that that the students and the staff have what they need to be successful. If we're looking at a program that's going to max out at, say, 10 to 15, that's more palatable in terms of the budgetary reality. I mean, we're talking right now about 4 students, and we're getting close to $250,000 that we're spending on 4 students. We do that as part of our special ed and some of our other funding, and more, when there are these kind of dramatic needs that are expressed with our children, with our students. But I think that's why there are, other programs that are that specialized. Our internal alternative schools are meant to work with a specific level of need. So I think, at this point, I'm willing to move forward with this position. Though I will say I would like to see the individual in this position, if we have the opportunity, taking on some support for the general Sullivan, the needs that are happening at the Sullivan School in general, because again, it's bringing on a position to work with a very small number of students right now, If that increases, so be it. But during that time, we're investing in bandwidth, and I really want to be able to say that that one position is, if it's only focused on 4 students with the support of 2 full-time teachers, there should be some additional bandwidth that we can take advantage of, whether it's to support the Sullivan or to support other programming in the district, to ensure that we really, if we make this investment, that we have precious little to invest. And if this is the direction and the recommendation of the administration, I'm certainly willing to support it. But I do think that we all need to be extremely aware of where this money is going and ensuring that we get the most impact that we can. Thank you.
Just, Madam Superintendent, I couldn't support it with just 4, but do you see the ability to be able to, say, expand to at least 10 to 12? Or,
It certainly has the
capability.
capability
If the
of...
principals do need that support.
Yeah, it certainly has that capability of doing that. Just as a reminder, too, to the committee that we did add additional staffing as part of this plan to the bridge program so that they could take an additional 10 students. So they will be welcoming up to another 10 students in their programming with the additional teaching staff and caseworker that was part to share with the Sullivan School as well.
Okay, Mr. Nutter, then Mr. Hoy.
I agree with Ms. Doherty that, left in the regular classroom, a student can be very disruptive to many, and, I do realize promises were made to the parents and the staff. So with that being said, I will make a motion to transfer from the suspense account the $105,000 to be used for the administrator at the McHugh Alternative Program at the Sullivan School.
Second, Mr. Dakota. Roll call.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mr. Lay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Nutter?
Yes.
Mayor Samaras?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
7 yeas approved.
Okay, Mr. Hoy.
I wanted to add something before the motion. Can I just say it? The Cardinal O'Connor School, that program to me was broken. I know I'm only one person, but we had to fix it. The school committee made a move, maybe a gamble, to go fix it. I think if I'm correct, I thought when you move out the kids to the Sullivan, some of the staff was going with them, correct? So, we could look at Cardinal O'Connor, and I could talk about this all night long, because some things we have to watch. I just want to get violence out of our schools. That's all I'm looking for. No guns, no knives, no violence. But I can say something about it, the Cardinal O School, that we can fix. I know this story like the back of my hand. I had a relative that was at the Butler School, got caught with a marijuana pipe, got sent, I think she took it off her parents, got sent to the Cardinal O'Connor School. She had perfect grades. She graduated from that school and went to the bridge program. Did a year there. All A's and B's, perfect grades, all over this one crime. Went to the Career Center on Smith Street as a freshman, did a year, all good grades. Then she had to do, instead of going back to the high school now, they made her do another year at the Career Center. The girl ended up quitting school. Back then, I know Miss Durkin had a hand in helping me. She might not remember it, but whoever was running it got the girl into some program on Middle Street in Lowell, and that kept her in schools. But they got to look at that when it's a nonviolent crime, for instance, and the girl's got all good grades, and she serves 3 years, and then she was ready to get another year at Smith Street, which is another broken program. It was broken to me. That's just my opinion. But this issue that we're dealing with now, I think it's a no-brainer. Sullivan School for years has been causing us issues, and the Robinson School. And I believe the biggest thing we do is what we just did. Give them that one extra. If it doesn't work, we could always change it. But that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Foster, for your presentation. Thank you. Ms. Turner?
Okay, and the final item that I wanted to discuss is just a recap of where we stand with the budget review. First, we did a team review. We just reviewed page by page to identify any problem areas. Next, we did an investigation of all the obvious problem areas like sick leave buyback, food service offsets. Now, we're currently working on that salary update, as I indicated earlier. What we're going to do with that information is once City Hall updates everything in Munis, we'll run reports and compare it to each page of the budget. If there's 29 art teachers, I want to run that report with the actual staff to make sure it's adequate funding. And I also requested of City Hall a report that shows how many people in the school department are currently getting health insurance based, by plan and what that cost is to us, and I'm going to compare that as well. The next steps within, and I'm ambitious enough to say that I'm thinking we're going to wrap this up, but again, we never know what we're facing, so I have to say that as a disclaimer. But what we would plan on doing now is just comparing the grant offsets and other offsets that are listed in the budget, wrapping it all up, and coming to you with a modified budget with any suggestions that we have to offer at that time.
Thank you. All set with that. Next is the response to Mr. Lay's motion on April 4th regarding parent engagement. Madam Superintendent?
Yes, this is in request to Mr. Lay's motion, requesting the superintendent investigate strategies to increase parent engagement in all schools, including our PTO, Citywide Parent Council, and School Site Council. I'd like to acknowledge and thank Family Resource Center Coordinator Rebecca Duda and former and now assistant principal at the Rogers School, but a former district support specialist who provided oversight to our parent liaisons, Nancy Crones, for pulling together this report and working with our school leaders to assess what we had district-wide, and then to make some plans and work with Project Learn to move forward and think about other options.
Yes, thank you, Superintendent. So the report that you have, we began, Mrs. Crones and I, with a baseline, what research says about engaging with families and parents and students. And the research is very clear that you have to think of it as a Venn diagram, as you'll see in the report. We have the family, the school, and then community partnerships. Community partnerships is actually relatively new to the research in the field of family engagement. And I should also preface that the research that you have in front of you is based on Dr. Joyce Epstein, who's considered the leader in the field of research on family engagement. And she runs the Family Engagement Center at Johns Hopkins University. So moving forward, Epstein's has, as you'll see in your report, 6 ways that parents and families will engage with the school. And you can categorize any engagement that families and students have with the school or with the community into these different categories, and sometimes they overlap. So then what we did, Nancy and I, we took Epstein's 6 typologies of engagement. So in this case, the first one is parenting. Sorry, I need new glasses. And we gave the overview and then what the district is currently doing in the field of parenting at the school. And Mrs. Crones was ideal to work with because she works out in the field and what the schools are doing. So these are our strengths. And then the next typology was communication. I can't read it. I should have it memorized. It's communication. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. I still can't read it. It's communication. So at the district level, the school level, and at the teacher level, we identified ways that we are communicating with parents and families. The third way was volunteering. And again, we identified ways that the district and the schools are engaging with families. Some of these are obvious. You know, the PTO, school site councils, things like that. And then individual schools also are doing some unique things. Then we have learning at home. Almost all families and parents will engage with their students, though we may not see them. We tend to see them when they arrive at the PTO meeting, or they volunteer for a field trip, or the school site council. But it's almost guaranteed that every family member, every parent, is engaging with their child somehow at home. Even if that means they're just asking, how was school today? That is engagement. Because many of our families might be working 2 jobs. They may not be able to attend different functions, but they are engaged somehow with their children. So learning at home takes place. Decision-making at the district level, and I'll speak more about this, the first thing that we identified was the Citywide Family Council. Previously, we had, and we'll talk about that more in a minute, previously there had been a Citywide Parent Council, and it's being revived this year as a Citywide Family Council, in conjunction with Project Learn. And then we have collaboration with the community, which again ties into projects such as the Citywide Family Council, where you engage with community partners such as Project Learn and Working Cities of Lowell, who are helping to organize our kickoff event later in September for the Citywide Parent Council. So then Mrs. Crones and I identified areas of opportunity in the district. Okay. So as we've talked to different people, we've said that transportation to events can be an issue. Some families have a difficult time getting there. Increasing the amount of information provided to families in their native language, that's an ongoing challenge that we face, translation. Improving the way in which the district recruits volunteers. And Lauren Campion has been working in a subcommittee with Project Learn and myself at the Family Resource Center in creating a web page that will be posted on every school. It'll be the same web page with Corey information, volunteer information, so parents will have that access on every school's web page. Because right now, it's really non-existent. Revisiting the Corey process, offering welcome back to school sessions to introduce families to the district. We probably need to rethink having just the traditional parent open house every night. Further developing the Parent Academy to create offerings for families. We have a calendar of events that was posted last year on the Family Resource Center webpage for events taking place. Primarily it's at the Family Resource Center, but it could be any event. Each school has its own calendar as well at the school website. And the Parent Academy, we're working with Project Learn as well too, to expand offerings. For example, we had offerings last year in conjunction with the Middlesex Partnership for Youth. They came several times to the Family Resource Center to talk about social media, bullying, mental health. Continue to develop the Family Resource Center website. I can say that by adding information to that website, the amount of hits that we're getting compared to last year, because you can track the data online, has doubled, more than doubled in fact. So that means people are engaging somehow with us online. Continued family events at the Family Resource Center, such as our book nights, when we have open house and the kids get free books and activities. And continued collaboration with Project Learn, CMAA, and other community organizations such as the Working Cities of Lowell. So the last few slides were presented by Project Learn, and LZ Nunn gives her regrets she couldn't join us this evening. She was going to present this part. But Your Voice Matters is actually, was last year, and they had several information sessions around the community to get people's input on challenges facing the district. And they've taken the lead role in bringing together the Citywide Family Council. So previously, we had the Citywide Family Council, which was, and we've had the bylaws, we found the bylaws, and it was a group of, I think it was 20, it said, it was very very exact with groups from around the district to talk about issues facing the district. Well, really, in this area of research, you get away from using the word parent, and it really should be family. So we're changing the title to Citywide Family Council, and the kickoff event, as you'll see here, is going to be September 26th, 5:30 to 7:30 at the Lowell Senior Center. And we're working with, to get transportation and food, and we've revised slightly the charter. So we're hoping to get parents engaged at the district level, so.
Mr. Lay, you all set?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Duda. Yeah, this is a good start. This motion was put in, seemed like a year ago. I want to thank you for keeping up with all of this. I feel that this is a very good start, and you mentioned something about the translation, which I totally believe that we not only need to have a translation, but to translate correctly also. So I guess Superintendent and I had a little talk about that too, and I'm just wondering if we need to have a correct translation. Will we be able to find somebody or hire somebody or outsource to somebody to do the correct translation? Do we have funds for that?
So right now, there are no additional funds to hire an outside agency. We've looked for the last year and a half with our special ed department, looked at a number of different agencies that could provide support to us for not only translating our IEPs, but translating a number of our documents. And I am happy I could bring forward to you some of those costs and some of the groups that we have met with. And unfortunately, this time it's cost prohibitive. And so we count on the staff that we have in our schools to support and do the best that they can at this time to do the translating. And I know we had that conversation, and we're reviewing, the documents that you alluded to for the welcome pieces.
Thank you. Just for everybody to understand, Ms. Superintendent and I, we were talking about some pieces of translation for the welcome package, and we have several teachers who are capable of doing that kind of work. How complicated would that be to have those teachers to work on those?
I know that Ms. Desmond and I spoke about this last week, and I know that her staff are looking at some of the options that we have available to us. And perhaps one of the things that we could do is to put out, something to our teaching staff to ask them, if they're available to. That's what we had done in the past. But it's one thing to be able to speak the language, it's another to translate as well. So that's a really important piece of it that we have to consider as well on that. But that's something we certainly continually, on a regular basis, we talk about this, because we know we have many, many families that we want to be able to communicate better with on a daily basis, and we should do that. We are researching all of the options that we have available to us, and I'll be happy to bring that forward.
Thank you.
Oh, it's a very good point. It's a very valid point, and we have to do the same thing on the city side to ensure that our citizens get the right information. And if we have to translate it, we have to translate it. It's a good point. Mr. Dakota, then Mr. Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In reference to the section on opportunities where you talk about the calendar of events for the Parent Academy and the Family Resource,
Yes, sir.
website calendar. Could that be something, once again, this is directed at the superintendent, that we could include that on the Lowell Public School website that makes it easier for them to just go to that one site, click a button, and they are at that location at that calendar rather than just trying to navigate their way to get there.
Right. The way it's designed now, you would go to Family Resource Center webpage and you have to click on the tab that says Calendar of Events.
If,
So,
if you're interested in what's on the calendar and stuff like that, and you can just go to this particular button that's on that webpage, on the Lowell Public School webpage, you don't have to go to your specific page necessarily. It can go to your page from there, but I think it should be easier for them to navigate once they come online and they go to the Lowell Public School website. They should be able to just, that's that little hot button that you press, and this pulls up all these different calendars. The one that you're interested in is right here, and this one here, and this is this one, and this is this school's. I think I know the technology is out there for that purpose, and I think we should be able to avail ourselves of that, and so that our population, it makes it easier for them to do that, to find that.
Madam Superintendent.
Thank you.
So I know that Ms. Duda has been working very hard in the last year to put something together for the Family Resource Center, but what I could ask her to do is to also reach out to John Overton. I know she's worked very closely with him over the course of the last year to ascertain what it would take to do something similar to what you're saying. I know, like, if something's up front on the website, it's easy access to our families. And then I think I'm certain there is a way that he can link it, that if you once you hit that, then you say, oh, I want to go to the Stocklosa. And that could be something that they could reach. And I think that's what you're mentioning, correct?
Thank you. Mr. Hoey?
Yes, I just want to say thank you. And Dominic, I think it's a good motion. I always said, I think when you go looking for parent involvement, you need to go after grandparents nowadays, because most of the grandparents are doing a lot of the work. But teaming up with Project Learn and the Lowell school system, I think this is a good idea. At the Lowell Senior Center on September 26th. Are you the one that gave us this?
Yes.
Good. I think it's a good thing. And the first 50 people that get there will get a backpack?
That's correct.
So I'll beat you, Dominic. I'll be there before you, okay? But no, I really think it's a good motion, and thanks for the work you've done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Lade, you have another question?
Thank you, sir. Just while we're on the topic, I just want to say for the parents out there who are watching, I want to thank them for watching you involved, because your kids succeed because you involve, and I hope the parents out there who are not involved as much learn that from you. And I personally wish when I was a kid that my parents involved, and so I learned that from the parents who are involved, and that's why this motion is important. So thank you, everybody, and thank you, Ms. Duda, for all the work you've done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the report. Ms. Doherty, are you all set on the top 10 facilities? Any other questions? Okay. Next, we have the Parent-Teacher Conference.
Thank you. This is an annual report of the scheduled parent-teacher conferences, 2 contractual requirements. It is important to note that there are a few schools that do have 3. I've learned today that from 2 of those principals that they pay their staff to attend those, and we'll be investigating. I'll get more information to you on that, but this is the annual conferences.
Ms. Doherty.
Thank you. Through you, I have a question for the superintendent. So I was part of the committee when we were able to get that second conference, because we have very limited time in our contracts that teachers are required to stay or come back in the evening. So the compromise was that it was an afternoon conference. I'm curious to know what kind of attendance we're seeing in our schools. Are parents able to come out after school to meet with their child's teacher? And I'm sure that your principals are tracking, you know, what the turnout is for these events. I think it would be wonderful if you could share that information with us at some point. I mean, I'm not looking for it, you know, right away, but I think it would be interesting to know if that afternoon slot is being utilized by our families.
I could probably do that once those sessions are done. I'll ask our leaders in advance so that they're aware that, you know, that they're asked about the afternoon session versus the evening, and we'll get those numbers to you.
Further. Next, report on motions.
Thank you. Sorry, I was writing my notes. This is your the bi-monthly report of motions for your review.
Any questions? Mr. Nutter?
Just a couple. I have a motion on that it says it was referred to the policy subcommittee. It's on page 1, the legal opinion on subcommittees. You can delete that motion. I withdraw that.
Okay, we'll do that.
Also, there is on page 5, the food service audit. It's marked as completed, but we have never received a copy of the actual correspondence that the city has shared with DESI and DESI's reasoning. And so when, I know you have it into DESI right now and you're waiting for a response, but when that response comes, I think we would like, at least I would like to see all of that information. And I think it's important to put it in the packet so the public knows that, you know, we're not making up these numbers. The state is telling us this was done incorrectly, and as a result, you know, you owe $1 million, $2 million, whatever that final number that you're able to negotiate comes down to. And that needs to be, in my opinion, you know, very public so people understand that.
So I was referring to the first pieces of the document, so I will certainly, I'll add ongoing there, and as soon as we get the additional pieces, we'd be happy to share those.
Thank you.
Ms. Doherty?
Sorry, just really, I think it's a typo. The last page has motions by Ed Kennedy dated 6/12/18. That can't be right. Yeah, page 12 of the, I mean, because he wasn't on the school committee then, right?
Senator, school committee man, he's multi-talented.
Now he's going to hold 3 roles, right, at the same time.
That is a city council. If you look at the top, those are 2 new city council motions that were brought forward by the city council. So that is in fact Ed Kennedy. And that was on 6/12/18, and we're preparing that report. We actually submitted the 2 reports to the city council for their review this week.
Oh, thank you for that. I didn't notice it.
All set. I need a motion to accept the reports of the superintendent. 8.1 through 8.5 is a report of progress. Motion by Ms. Doherty, seconded by Mr. Dakota. I'm sorry.
I apologize, I didn't have a chance to review these thoroughly. Superintendent, I think there's one more motion that I don't see here, but so can we, there was motion that we passed, but it was still on for, I'm not sure, and I just want to, that motion was about offering the, what do you call, the MTEL to residents as well. I think we have our school system have an MTEL program for our staffs, and that motion I made back then was to have it offered to our residents just to increase the diversity in our school system. That motion was passed, but I think it was still on because I was not sure of the next step of doing it. So maybe you and I can meet and review that. So
I can look up that motion and see if there was a report. I believe there was a report it wasn't from my specific department, but I feel like there might have been a report provided by, was it curriculum? Ms. Desmond, can you speak to that?
So that is correct. It was to look into whether we could give MTEL prep classes to our staff, paraprofessionals, and Pina Maggio, who oversees or directs our LTA program, our Lowell Teacher Academy program, provided us with the materials that does indeed occur. We do prep courses for our paraprofessional staff, and any teaching staff that might be interested in a different area of the MTEL that they haven't yet taken. So that report was completed. I do recall that there was the question around whether we could extend beyond what we offer as a school district to the community, and I believe that the LTA was looking into that.
May I also add, Mayor, that for residents who wanted to do it, it would not be free. I understood that. That was when that motion was made. That of course they have to pay a certain amount to attend the course.
Mr. Chicotto?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's important that we make that offering to our residents as well as our paraprofessionals, because I think we're looking at a severe teacher shortage coming very soon, and we need to be addressing that. I keep talking to various people from across the country. I was at a summer workshop, and they're all facing the same problems. I think this is a countrywide issue. Kids aren't going into education, so we've got to figure out how to either bring our current staff into the fold, as it were, and we need to do something, because we're going to be facing a severe shortage as we baby boomers all retire and so forth. I mean, there's going to be a shortage. I think we need to really be realistic about addressing those issues. Thank you.
All right. Next on 8.6, home education, Madam Superintendent.
Yes, this is just the traditional home education request.
Okay, I need a motion to approve by Ms. Martin, second by Mr. Nutter. Roll call.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mr. Lay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Nutter?
Yes.
Mayor Samaras?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
7 yeas approved.
All right, under new business, bullying prevention intervention plan review for 2018-2019. Madam Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is our annual, as required by Mass General Law, review of the bullying prevention and intervention plan. We had done a really extensive review in the spring of 2017 in preparation for the coordinated program review, and the findings that we had indicate that Lowell Public Schools plan was aligned with Mass General Law. The only addition that we made this year was to the definition of cyberbullying. We added additional information which aligns with what our handbook says, and also recommendations from the state. So those are in red indicated for you in the document. And other than that, the rest of the document remains the same. The changes are on page 5. And I bring that forward to you for a vote of approval for moving forward. And I'd like to thank Attorney Jane Moshe-Canty and Michael Ortiz for providing this review as they do annually.
Any discussion? Okay, I need a motion to approve the bullying prevention and intervention plan by Ms. Doherty, second by Mr. Dakota. A roll call.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mr. Lay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Nutter?
Yes.
Mayor Samaras?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
7 yeas approved.
All right, on 9.2, we need to accept the donation of the Collegiate Charter School. I need a motion to withdraw the vote to accept the donation of the Collegiate Charter School. I need a motion to take it off the table at this point. Just an error. We need to redo it.
Don't make the motion to.
Mr. Nutter?
Make the motion to withdraw the item.
Thank you. And a second by Mr. Hoey.
Question, Mayor?
Yeah.
Are we doing that because you got the wrong name there?
Yes.
Okay.
So you'll get another.
We'll be doing that again?
The principal let us know, but it was after the deadline. So we just would like to pull it and make sure that you get the appropriate name and the thanks go to the appropriate school.
I think
process.
Lowell Charter School, I think it's going to read.
Correct.
Because the person that donated these, I know it was Bob Gignac, one of our fellow colleagues that got us all this stuff, so that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I just want to do it right, okay? Next is convention conference requests. I need a motion to approve by Ms. Doherty, seconded by Ms. Martin. Roll call.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mr. Lay? Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Nutter?
Yes.
Mayor Samaras?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Under communication, we have a letter of appreciation to the Daily Group. I need a motion to accept and place on file by Ms. Martin, seconded by Mr. Hoey. All in favor? Good. Now, professional personnel, the members of the United Teachers of Lowell hereby donate 27 sick day leave to Daniel Murphy, Lowell High School teacher. I need a motion to approve by Mr. Dakota, seconded by Ms. Martin. Roll call.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mr. Lay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Nutter?
Yes.
Mayor Samaras?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Excuse me, Mayor.
Yes.
Did we skip one? Communications? 11-1?
We did that.
We did it? Okay, thanks.
Just trying to move it along. Okay, next we're going to go, I need a motion to recess and enter an executive session for the purpose of collective bargaining with the SEIU, UTL, and LSAA, litigation, grievance, and non-union personnel which may detrimentally affect the school committee's position. We will not adjourn from the executive session. We will return to have a vote on non-union personnel at the conclusion of the executive session. So we will adjourn from this council chamber. So right now, I need a motion to go into executive session by Mr. Hoey, second by Mr. Nutter. Roll call.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mr. Lay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin? Mr. Nutter?
Yes.
Mayor Samaras?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
We will return.
I think the tele-
All right. Need a motion to return from executive session by Mr. Nutter, second by Ms. Martin. Roll call.
Mr. Hoey,
Yes.
Mr. Lay,
Roll call?
No.
Just say yes.
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 Ms. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. Nutter,
Yes.
Mayor Samaras,
Yes.
Mr. Dakota,
Yes.
Ms. Doherty.
Yes.
7 present.
The matter that we were going to discuss will be referred to the next meeting.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, accepted, second by Ms. Martin. Thank you.
Might